So our family, it sort of evolves and shifts. So our family is made up of the two of us and several teenage boys. So we've had all teenage boys in our home. Currently, we have our oldest Elijah, our middle boy Dominic, and our youngest is Joseph.
We would describe each of our sons' personality. They are all different. Elijah is very driven and kind of more, I'd say, reserved. Dominic is big personality, a lot of charisma, 6'2", um, gregarious, and Joseph is passionate, a little wild, and sensitive.
There's a lot of things that we try to do together. We all like to eat, so there's that. We love travel. We go to Disneyland, where Thomas works.
We
Um,
go to the movies all the
a lot of
time.
movies.
We're taking our first family vacation together cruise this June. So all us and the three boys are going to go on a cruise together.
I think that some of the things that we do together that are traditions are related to holidays. So
Hmm.
we try to make a big deal out of Christmas. We try to get all the boys together to put ornaments on the tree, etc. We have stockings for all of them. At Halloween, I love for us all to go in the front yard and carve pumpkins.
Hmm.
Easter time, we go in the front yard and dye Easter eggs. And we typically have an Easter egg hunt of some kind. So, yeah, some holiday related things like
Also
that.
birthdays. We try to make something special about each birthday, usually decorating the porch and the house and cake and presents. And then we try to cater it each year to like what they're, wanting to do.
Before we got involved with Kidsave, we knew very, very little about the foster care system. We are a couple that's been together 27 years. And so Thomas would say pretty consistently, like, I'd like to have kids someday. And I would answer, how do you imagine that happening? So he'd get a little mad, and I'd go, well, I think it's a pretty fair question, considering. So, literally, I was in the car commuting to work to Burbank to work, and I heard an ad about a sort of free informational brunch to teach people about foster care. And Thomas was out of town, and I thought, I'll go to that. And that was the beginning of our journey.
Yeah, I just had this idea that we'd have a family of our own and find a way to make it happen. I didn't know how that would happen either. But as same-sex marriage became legal, that really set a foundation for, I don't know, just like the legitimacy of it all. And I think from there, it became a conversation about, well, what could we do? What are ways that we could do it? And so we found that one thing with us in our this point in our lives and our careers, um, when we were first asked and we first started getting involved, they would say, "Oh, what ages are you looking for?" And we looked at each other, we're like, "We have no idea." That no idea ended up being the opening for the consideration for older foster youth. That we didn't have some predetermined, like, we went 0 to 2 or 2 to 4. We had this openness of like, I don't know. And so what evolved with our first foster placement was a 17-year-old boy, Anthony, that was placed with us. We had never met him, and he was with us for 2 years in our house. From there, we're like, this is interesting. I wonder if there are other ways that we can do it where the kids have more involvement in this process, that we can kind of know each other a little bit better. And someone had recommended Kidsave to us prior, but we just, in the deluge of information, we didn't really hook into it until after Anthony was with us. And we were like, oh, wait, why don't we try something different? Let's see if we go to an event, see how we feel, and not only like get a feel for it, but also see like, does this make any sense to us? I thought that Michael was not going to like it at all. But at that very first event, he met Elijah, and Elijah is now one of our sons. So Elijah even says it was the only event that Elijah went to, and then Michael went to, and then the pandemic hit. So had they not gone in that one particular time, they would have had that kind of missed connection. And from there, really, this Kid Save chapter for us began. And we realized how important it was for the youth in foster care to have a choice about who they want to spend time with. And for us, it has really made all the difference, not only in how we interact with them, but kind of our continuing relationship with them, is that it's about choice and about their own personal agency.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly. So when Anthony walked in the door, our first son, it was through the county, and he was a total stranger to us, and we were a total stranger to him. And that's a tough thing to pull off with a 17-year-old who's
Yeah.
been in foster care. And what KidSave did to change our lives is it totally flipped the narrative and said, oh, the kids get to choose the adults. So now, if the kids are a little bit unhappy with us for some reason, we
Excuse me.
go, oh, just remember that
You picked us.
you picked us. So it's really changed our lives.
It's a pretty fun leverage, right? With like, that's not funny. I was like, well, you picked us. In going into the process, there are daunting and challenging ideas about it because they are older. I know that I had this like expectation that somehow it'd be like, yeah, this is a great opportunity. So I'm going to take advantage of it from their point of view. That's not really how it goes. They kind of are like, what? Resistant, challenging, questioning, pushing all the boundaries. But in that negotiation, I guess what we're learning or what we've been learning is that there is where you like start to figure out problems together. You start to learn how to better communicate, how to better negotiate. Um, but I want to be honest, like it is challenging. I think both of us would attest, like it is challenging, absolutely for sure, and kind of continuously challenging. But what happens with anything in life that's challenging, that's worthwhile, you find that as you work through it, the value and the worth reveals itself. And we've seen that with each of our boys that, yes, has it all been challenging? For sure. But has it been like we think probably the most significant and rewarding and impactful thing that we'll ever do? Yes.
Well, we started our foster journey about a dozen years ago. And in that time, we have had a total of 6 teenage boys placed in our home. A couple were respite, which is a temporary sort of emergency placement. Um, we've had a boy that said, I never wanted to be adopted, but totally calls us dads, and we call him our son. And we've had 2 boys who are like, hi, nice to meet you. I want to be adopted as soon as possible. So there's a real
Range.
range of
Hmm.
their opinions. And I think that I didn't really have any expectations exactly. It was more of uncertainty. What's this going to be like? Let's give it a try and see how it goes. And here we are a dozen years later, still learning.
Some of the concerns and hesitations that we had before we started working with KidSafe, we legitimately had our mothers go, "Why would you want to do that? That you're going to ruin your perfect lives. You're going to be dealing with challenging, kids." And for us, it was hearing from both of our mothers that were looking out for us. I think that set up this idea of like, whoa, do we know what we're doing? Because we obviously, trust our mothers. But I think that the challenges and hesitations, yeah, I think that we were worried that it was going to be so disruptive that we wouldn't be able to kind of find a sense of normalcy again, or that it would upend our lives in a way that we couldn't find our way back to kind of living the lives that we had grown accustomed to. My sister shared this once actually when she was getting ready to have birth with, I think it was her first or second child. And I think it was her pediatrician that said, the child's joining your life. So think of it that way, that they're joining like your ecosystem, your community. And that's one of the ways that I've looked at it, that they're joining our world. Now we get their worlds and they're joining ours, but there definitely is that like, hey, we're not sacrificing our whole lives just to do this. We are continuing to live our lives, our careers, our creativity, our friends, our relationships, our families, and we're folding you into that equation
Mm.
so that we're adding to it, not subtracting from anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that one of the hesitations that I had was we both were working full time at the time.
Mhm.
And, when I'm working in film or television, it's like, 16, 18 hours a day. It's a big commute from where we live up to the studios. And I didn't quite know how that was going to work.
Yeah.
And really, the answer is you just make it work.
I want to add too. So the reality that hits is that you get into this idea of I think some of the hesitation, some of the challenges are you get into it and you're trying to solve it maybe on your own or as a couple. We have leveraged so many friends, so many other parents, so many organizations, therapists, counselors, social workers. We say, come on, everybody, it takes a village. Let's get the village enacted time and time again because we can't take it all on ourselves. It is a community. KidSave itself has a community of caregivers and social workers who have continued to support us in this process as well. So it's really a much broader topic even than just parents, potential parents with a potential youth.
So, what steps did it take for us to become foster parents? It was for us, there are a couple paths that people can take. So, you can go with straight through the county, which is much sort of simpler in some ways, or you can get a private agency, which is what we decided to do. So, the private agency did two things for us. It gave us a much more extensive training period. I think it took us like the better part of a year to
Hmm.
get all the way through and get certified. And then you get more services from the private agency. So we had a lot of wraparound team members who were there for us, and that was really beneficial for us with a lot of the boys.
Hmm.
So those are two paths you can take if you're interested in fostering.
Yeah, I think that in the time between completing our training until our first placement, I think was another 3 years, wasn't it? I think it was a longer time than we thought. And they it just kept not like working. Their placement, the placements they tried to make weren't working for either scheduling differences. Sometimes uh, there were several times they were looking for someone who could look after infants, and we were both working full time. So that all of that ended up leading to, which we've referenced before, our first placement, official placement was with Anthony at 17 years old.
I think I think our perceptions have changed quite a bit. I think that we went into it not knowing very much at all, and after you have a dozen years of experience and you've had a bunch of teenage boys live in your home, I think your perception naturally changes, and so that's happened for us with time. And I think our parenting has evolved, and I think that our approach to the boys has also evolved.
So, in my opinion, there's an impression of the foster care system that a lot of people want to blame for a lot of challenges. I look at it as a system that is in place to catch some of the challenges that biological families have, right? So it's a system that's trying to help support. And so with that, I think that there are flaws, obviously, in a system like that. But I do feel that there is we've worked with so many incredible social workers,
Mhm.
therapists, CASA, like you name it, who are really doing great work, and they are there to support the youth in foster care. Like they're advocating. We have met some real advocates for it. And I say that a little bit in defense of the system because it is in place to help families that are in crisis, to help families that are in these urgent or more emergency situations. And so, yeah, is it a perfect system? No, it's not. But have we met a lot of people who are doing really great things to support
Mm.
the youth? Yes. So I know that that perception has changed for me, and we lean on them. We lean on the advocates that we have, the social workers and the adoption workers and the therapists, etc. As I said before, because it takes a village. We lean on KidSave. We reach out to them with insights or conversations about things. We, I think we went into this becoming foster parents thinking that you kind of this almost myopic view that it's going to be you and the youth, and the reality is, it's you and the youth and their entire world. It's their friends, their family, their school, their
coach,
sports, their coaches, their girlfriends,
teachers.
it's the whole thing. And I think that we learned that years ago and we're like, wow, how come we didn't realize that it's like all of it? I mean, kind of for better, for worse, but really mostly for the better, that you really do get their whole world and then you're trying to merge those worlds together.
So, what's it like to foster an older youth in
Hmm.
foster care? Our boys range when we met them 14, 15, 16, and 17. So, we're really at the very top end of the age bracket. It's an interesting thing to ponder because we do a lot of talking to biological parents, and we hear from a lot of biological parents that a lot of the challenges are exactly the same as the
Yeah,
challenges
the
that
same.
we've had.
Exactly.
So, it's
Independence, autonomy. They don't want to do their homework. They resisted like doing things around the house. They don't want to get off their phones. I mean, some of it is just like completely universal.
But there's also the side of a older foster youth where you can have like larger scope of conversations in terms of the types of topics that you can discuss with them, right? There's some really exciting things that are happening in their lives that I find really rewarding, like teaching all the boys to drive,
Hmm.
making sure that the boys have all their legal documentation, their first passport, their first airplane ride, graduation from high school, entering into college. So it's an exciting time to be having a youth because they're on the verge of adulthood, so to speak, but we can have like bonding in a way that we wouldn't with an if it would be very different with an infant or a 2 year old. So it's been great for us.
Yeah, sometimes it's felt like we get to step into the highlight reel. So we've literally been there when Elijah got the game ball at his football game. We were there when Dom made his first goal of the soccer on the soccer team
And when they won the championship that
and
year.
when the CAF. And then with Joseph when he decides to perform a monologue at the open house.
Who's never been on stage in his entire life, and I'm there watching him acting.
Yeah, so we get to be present for those moments, and in those moments, not only like how cool that is, but also being there for them is like really rewarding. And with that cool thing, what I'd like to add is one of the things I've learned, very humbly, is that they're all cooler than us. I mean, legitimately, our three boys are all have a level of coolness and way that they move about the world that I think we have been learning from.
Is there anything that we wish we would have known before we started our journey? I think Thomas spoke to this already, but I'm going to say we went through an extensive training process, all kinds of training, and all different aspects and facets of training, right, to prepare ourselves as best as we could. But no one had said to us, oh, by the way, you're going to get their entire world, the entire complexity of their world and the people in their lives and their past experiences. And that sort of complexity that brings was something that was never brought to our attention. So when we talk to prospective foster parents, we always bring that up and say, maybe especially with older foster youth, there's a whole world that they've lived, a whole life that they've lived, and a whole world that they inhabit, and you get all of it. And some of that's been challenging, and some of it's been amazing.
I went to this symposium recently, and they said youth in foster care, they are the experts of their lives. They know what has got them there. And so it's been really interesting to consider that leaning on them as older youth in foster care, they have experiences. They do have wisdom. They have stuff that they've learned. They know stuff that works for them and doesn't. And so in some ways, when you can connect with that, it really helps because they are the experts. They know what's gone on beyond any report or anything that you get. They come with that experience, and it can be really helpful to listen to them.
So what would we say to an LGBTQ adult who's interested in fostering a child?
I know that we thought that it was going to matter more to the kids, and it turns out it hasn't.
Not at all.
I mean, it what matters more to them is that there are caring, consistent adults in their lives. We've asked all the boys, and they're kind of like, you
And
know,
and they very openly, every single one of them, and they're very different people from one another, but they'll go, "Oh yeah, my two dads, blah blah blah." Like, "Oh yeah, those are my two dads." And and no one bats an eye.
If you would have said this to me 20 years ago, that this is where we'd be, I'd never believe it. But there's no way. There's no way that like teenage boys in high school with all that, that they're going to be cool with it. I never would have thought it. But instead, each one of them is like,
It's been absolutely no big
they're like,
deal
I'm
and to
chill.
them or their
I'm
friends.
chill.
It's been totally a surprise. In fact, what we said when before we got our first son is we said, he's got to be okay with two things, right? One is that we do have a couple of cats, so
Hmm.
that's got to be okay. And then two, we're two men. And it just simply hasn't been an issue in the slightest bit. What I say to new foster parents who are considering just like considering it, I say if you attend a Kidsave event, you can go to one and just see how you feel and dip your toe in the water, and you don't ever have to go back. So that's one opportunity for we know single parents who are fostering, um, both straight and LGBTQ,
Hmm.
and we know couples who are,
Hmm.
and there are straight couples and same-sex couples, and there are single people all getting involved, and you know there is a need for foster parents. So if someone's considering it at all, I would encourage them to give it a try.
Um, did we feel supported by the foster care system? I know specifically when we were looking for agencies, we looked for an agency that was LGBTQ friendly. And that really made a difference. We could see that in their openness, and the other prospective families that were there were kind of the spectrum. And I feel like that really was a better representation of the foster system in general, is that it really is the spectrum. It's the spectrum of so many of the youth come with so many backgrounds, ethnicities, religious backgrounds, sexual orientation, gender identity. So having that represented in prospective mentors or foster parents, I think is it's essential for identification of feeling like there are people out there like me as well, and I don't have to feel so different from everybody else.
It's been interesting going to events at Kidsave because I didn't know how they would respond. How are teenagers going to respond to two men, right? And it's happened on more than one occasion where a youth will say, "Oh my God, you two are married?" I'll say, "Yes."
Yes.
And they'll go, "Would you adopt me? Because I've always wanted to have two same-sex parents
Or two gay dads.
or two gay
I know,
dads."
which again was like, wow, okay.
Surprise.
Again, 20 years ago, would you ever imagine hearing it? No, but it is different, and I do think that what we've seen, because now it's been multiple, of the boys in our lives, is that it really comes down to they're already paying it so much attention to their lives anyway, right? They're hyper aware of so many things, and I think they can tell good intentions, and we come with good intentions, and I think that then it becomes just about us as people, and that's just one aspect of who we are, and I think they recognize that.
So for LGBTQ adults who think that maybe there will be limitations in the foster care system because of who they are, we haven't had that be a case whatsoever. Yes, we live in a state that is more liberal than some other states, but it's been wholeheartedly equal rights, equal protections under the law. And so we haven't found there to be any barriers because of our
No, and
marriage.
I'd like to add that the youth who identify as LGBTQ, they need us, and they need other adults that are LGBTQ or friendly or allies. They need us. Bottom line.
And in high school today, like it's not like when I was in high school.
Mm-mm.
The kids, it's all about who's straight, gay, bi, pan, questioning trans. I mean, and it's just an everyday part of their language. So I haven't found there to be anything coming from the kids or from the system that would be limiting to us because we're a same-sex couple. We are two adults who have tried to have big, full lives and get a lot accomplished and do a lot of things in our lives, right? Um, there's never been anything like this in terms of the impact it's had, I think, on our hearts and our souls. Um, we'll break down crying at a commercial or
Hmm.
or at a movie, and it'll be something related to the boys. And I know that it just feels like helping another human being who doesn't have someone there to help them is the right thing for us to be doing.
I'll add that what's been surprising and impactful about being a part of the foster care system is the more that I've been able to let go of expectations, the more that I've been able to stay present to what actually shows up. So when I find them giggling with each other or teasing each other relentlessly or just like yeah, I think it's laughing. It's like playing sports or auditioning for the play or being a part of stage crew. That when they start to show up as who they are and being present for that, I'm I'm amazed that just like hopefully we've hoped that providing a foundation is allowing them to live like their better lives, like finding this stability that they can just continue to be themselves, to be their best selves and have like really full and rewarding lives. It's pretty rewarding to witness.
There's also a lot of very small moments that have big impact on us.
Yeah,
And I'm not trying to make it sound idyllic or idealized
right.
at all because, they're teenagers and there can be challenges. But just this week, one of the boys asked me to make a specific dish that I make from scratch. And I thought it was very sweet for him he asked me twice before I actually made it because I didn't have time at the moment. Or they'll walk up, one of the tough boys, who's always, I'm one of the tough kids or whatever it may be, walks up and out of nowhere, wants to give you a hug. It's rather impactful in so many ways.
Yeah, like we completely take note. The first time they'll say dad, they'll call us dad. Or the first time they'll say I love you. We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Sometimes it might come through a text or I don't know, we'll just or we'll hear them say it to someone else. They're like, oh, my dad's. And I'm like, did you hear that? They just told us that.
And we try to play all cool.
We're like, oh yeah,
we didn't even
sure,
notice.
sure.
We didn't even notice.
But meanwhile, we're like, whoa, what's the date and time? I'm going to write it down.
It's totally true.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty great. Yeah, that's again one of those 20 years ago, if you would have said to me or us, like, oh, you're going to have these boys that are going to call you dad, they're going to say, this is my family, they're going to say, I love you. I mean, it's pretty incredible, really.
I have one more thing to say about fostering an older youth, and that's that it's easy to focus on the immediacy of what is happening at the right then and there, right? So whether it's a grade in school or whether it's an attitude that's not going so well one day or something like that. But with time, what we've seen, we were just talking about this yesterday, with time, with the boys that have been with us longer, we can see what structure, stability, caring adults, love can mean to them in the long run.
Yeah.
That the long game is proving itself to be something that is way more beneficial than the day-to-day of the things that are challenging.
Because you never outgrow your need for a family.